Future music. Forbidden Planet. A couple years ago, a friend of mine had acquired some items from the estate of Louis Barron. Louis and Bebe Barron, when they were a couple, they were married in the late 40s. Really early, you could say the first electronic music pioneers. They were given, very hard to acquire at the time in the late 40s, a magnetic reel-to-reel as a wedding gift. And Louis was an engineer, and they started to experiment. So they were part of that beatnik era, late 40s, early 50s New York. They had worked with John Cage. They had recorded Moondog, spoken word records by Anis Nin. They were spotted in a club by the executive producer for the film Forbidden Planet when they were doing one of their electronic performances. So they studied a book that was written in the late 40s, Cybernetics. And what that was a theory about how natural laws apply to not only animals but also complex electronic machines. So when they were called upon to do the score, they looked at each element of the film, because this was done in post-production, and they scored to each scene, doing a combination of test tone oscillators, 3 different tape machines, being different times, different speeds to get different times and pitches out of them, running certain tapes backwards. And then Louis was doing all the technical end of it. Bebe was the composer. And this record came out as an anniversary of the film. So this was done in 1976, so it was the 20th year anniversary of the film. And without question, the work on Forbidden Planet has gone on to influence electronic music, but also every score in a sci-fi or horror film has been affected by what Louis and Bebe had done on this record. Now they never got the love they should have gotten for this, and when I acquired some of the items from the estate, I got quite a few interesting things, and that gave me a glimpse into the thinking and what kind of mind did Louis have to be this creative and this sort of out of the box thinking, man, this creative thing, and imagining a world and then applying that world to film. And really Forbidden Planet stands the test of time, and like I said, it has influenced not only the electronic score but also every the cinematography of it. It was shown in a lot of theaters in stereophonic sound, which was quite unusual at the time. It's a big deal. So I have some artifacts, and this gives you an idea of the sort of mind that he had. And the part of the treasure trove was weird little boxes and things I've never even totally been able to figure out what they do or what the intention was. But it was obviously a lot of these things were meant to test circuits. So a skilled, really clever engineer, and there were other things that are sort of testing devices. This looks sort of the time period of Forbidden Planet. But you can see, he's got open architecture here where he could run signals in or whatever, however he was applying this. Other things like, it's a switch box, so that's not terribly compelling, but big switch, and this feels like it was modified. It has a pod in it rather than a switch, so I'm sure he was using the box. This is definitely sort of post that 50s, late 40s, 50s era, but you can see the thinking, because this is some more of his handiwork, and that looks like a little amplifier perhaps. A lot of it was socketed, so he could use these in different combinations and design as he went. This is a high voltage board that was used for tubes. And you can see that it's open again, so he'd have tubes in here, whatever, testing, modifying circuits. Here's another doodad that he had modified. There's more of those knobs that are so cool. And you can see alligator clips and all that. So it gives you a glimpse into his mind. And really read up on this because it's extremely important historically. And also they were extremely underrated, like painfully underrated when you look at the lasting impact of this film. Now another thing that I got as part of this deal was a test tone oscillator, which looks like it could be relatively of the time period, but I'm not totally sure. So I'm going to fire this thing up, and I'm going to just do a little sort of an homage to them. And this is pretty interesting because you can see that there were markings here on the frequencies, those red lines. And he had modified this as well. So this is a standard test tone oscillator. And I can affect the range. See some of his handiwork inside of it when I was getting this thing together. So man, it's really fascinating. Do your homework on this. This was really, once I got this material, I was aware of who they were and I knew a little bit of the story of the score for Forbidden Planet. But then I really investigated it. And it was both a compelling story, fascinating study on the creative nature of the artist, and then painful too because how grossly underrated they were. And I just want to give my thanks to them for the work that they did. And you know, out there in the universe, there's been a profound lasting impact of what they did. At any rate, my name is Jack Watterson. This is Future Music. I'm here every day from 11 to 3, taking appointments. Got questions, let me know. Thank you, guys.